Do you see the pattern? Every contact with China kills Americans. If there were some other country in which every meaningful contact killed tens of thousands of Americans, do you think we'd still have contact with it? Yeah, I'm seeing in the contact somebody saying, wow. Yeah, the first time you realize that it's a pattern, every meaningful contact kills tens of thousands of Americans. Does every meaningful contact we have with, I'll just pick a country, Germany, result in the death of Americans? None. None. China's mad at the United States for kicking off of the New York Stock Exchange 3 big Chinese telecom companies. The reason for doing it was interesting. I didn't know this until now. That Trump had issued back in November 12th an executive order saying that you couldn't list on the New York Stock Exchange companies that are basically controlled by the Chinese military. Now, if you ask China, would they say, oh yes, our big telecom companies are totally controlled by our military? No, they would not. They would deny that that is the case. But the Chinese system is such that there's no such thing as an independent major corporation. That's not really a thing. Of course, the major corporation, has to answer to the Chinese Communist Party, and of course the military does too. So for all practical purposes, they are controlled by the military. It's just the way China does it. And to me, that executive order makes perfect sense. We should not be promoting our enemies' military assets. Because military has turned into cyber, right? So if these telecommunications companies are the weapons that the Chinese military uses for their cyber attacks, and of course they are. Of course they are. For stealing IP, for spying, of course they are. That's exactly what they're for. There's not any debate on that. There's nobody smart who thinks that the Chinese telecom companies are not being used for cyber war. So of course they are. It's just a military asset in addition to being a civilian one. So I think that was a really good executive order. And here's another one of those cases where ask yourself, would Biden have done this? And how important is it? How important is it that we could... Somebody says, it's over, Scott, give it up. So I'm going to talk about assholes like you in a bit. We'll get to that. So it's pretty good, the executive order. China is arguing. But here's what I'm starting to think. I feel as if the United States and China are like incompatible organs in a body. Like you could get a transplant, but it would be rejected eventually. You could only do it for a little while. That lasted a week, but it got rejected. Because think about all the ways that we're literally allergic to China. Not literally, but in a little bit literally. So now that we know that our viruses, even our regular viruses, are coming from China, we should just close travel. If it's literally unsafe to have travel back and forth from China because they're giving us diseases and killing us, let's just stop doing it. Why do we need flights from China? Do we need them? Because we got Zoom, we got email, right? Now, I understand that in-person meetings are way more effective than remote meetings because human beings are human and there's nothing that matches the in-person thing. But here's my question. Do we want Americans and Chinese business people to get close? Close the way that human contact gets you close, but a phone call does not. You see what I'm saying? The benefit of meeting in person is a really big benefit. And if we're meeting in person with, let's say, our business partners in Germany or Great Britain, is that a good idea? Yeah. Because I can't think of anything that would be healthier or better for America than we have strong person-to-person ties with our allies who are also, democracies-ish and are also capitalist countries. That feels like one of the healthiest things you could ever do, have lots of personal connections with your allies. But why would you want personal connections with a known enemy in the middle of a hot cyber war? That's the opposite of what you'd want, right? Wouldn't you want any deals with China to be sort of hands off? It's like, okay, just show me the spreadsheet. All right, the spreadsheet says this could be a good deal, so we'll do the deal. But I'm not going to have tea with you. We're just going to talk on Zoom or email. That's it. Do you think that the United States would be better off or worse off with or without those close personal connections with a country that's a known enemy? I feel like we'd be better off without them. I can't think of an actual reason why anybody needs to travel back and forth from China, with the exception of, family members who maybe need to do it. So you probably need some exception for family situations, but I don't think we should do any business travel, and we shouldn't do any recreational travel if what's happening is a bunch of flu is coming over here. Let's just not do it. So we are incompatible with them from a financial sense and a healthcare sense. Financially, we can't take one of their companies and put it into our system, because that's what happened with the New York Stock Exchange, right? We just took Chinese companies, telecom companies, and said, let's treat them like any other company. But they're not any other company because their system essentially makes them captive to the military for all practical purposes. So we're incompatible in a business sense because their businesses are really military, and ours are less so. And we're incompatible healthcare-wise, because if they travel here, we all die. And we're incompatible even with the mail, because they mail fentanyl over here. I mean, that's more of a goes to Mexico to the cartels and then comes here. But every contact we have with China kills us, right? If we have physical contact with them, we get viruses and die. If we let them mail things, they mail fentanyl to Mexico and it comes here and we die. If we let them have contact with our financial system, they put telecom companies into our networks and use it for cyber warfare and we die. Do you see the pattern? Every contact with China kills Americans. Let's say we have contact with them and move some of our companies there. So our companies and our jobs move over to China. What happens to the Americans left in, let's say, the Rust Belt or wherever else? They die. They do fentanyl and they die. Every contact with China, think about it. Is this an exaggeration? This is not an exaggeration. It is not an exaggeration that every meaningful contact with China kills Americans by the thousands. Probably tens of thousands. Yeah. Every meaningful contact with China kills Americans by tens of thousands. Has anybody noticed the pattern? Am I the first one to tell you? There's a pattern. Literally every meaningful contact with China kills tens of thousands of people. If there were some other country in which every meaningful contact killed tens of thousands of Americans, do you think we'd still have contact with it? Yeah, I'm seeing in the contact somebody saying, wow. Yeah, the first time you realize that it's a pattern, every meaningful contact kills tens of thousands of Americans. All of them. Mail, email, because even the email is going to be cyber attacks. Everything. Business, commerce, every meaningful contact. Now, does every meaningful contact we have with, I'll just pick a country, Germany, result in the death of Americans? None. None. I mean, I'm supposed to be some weird coincidences, but we're not talking about anything meaningful. How about Great Britain? How many people have died in the United States because we have strong ties with Great Britain? Probably none. I mean, I can't think of any. Canada? None. Mexico is a little dicey. Mexico is killing a lot of Americans, but specifically the cartels. It doesn't feel like, Well, I guess the cartels are the government for all practical purposes in Mexico. Yeah, so I would think Mexico would be thrown on the list as at least a country that causes death in the United States. But notice that even with Mexico, it seems to be limited just to the drug trade, and the violence around that. Whereas it's not as if everything we do with Mexico kills Americans. We've got tourist trade and we've got business trade. NAFTA doesn't kill Americans exactly. Well, maybe NAFTA did, but the current deals are not so dangerous.